guys, welcome to my channel. It is Christian here. Thank you so much for joining me today. So today we're going to be testing out some new things from Ciate London. I have their bronzer, their blush, and their highlight, and all of these are fairly new to the Ciate London range. And I was super interested in trying out the bronzer in the shade Palm Island, and then I saw that they had released some new blushes and some new highlighters as well, and I was like, hey, why not? Let's turn it into a thing. So today I do have all three of these products on my cheeks right now, and I'm going to apply them on camera for you and kind of let you know my first thoughts, my first opinions on the particular products. I'm going to wear it throughout the day, come back on at the end of the night and let you know what I think about them, how they wore, how they stack up to some of my absolute favorite bronzers in my collection. So we're going to go ahead and get into the demonstration of all of these products. So if you're wondering why my face looks a little weird and a little flat, it's because I have yet to apply bronzer, blush, and highlight, obviously. So we are going to be applying this on camera today. We're going to be testing out the formulation, seeing how, do they blend really nice? And then we're also going to wear it throughout the day and see how well it lasts on the face. So I have heard such wonderful, wonderful things about the bronzer, and I've heard some pretty good things about the blush. I haven't heard a lot about the highlighter. I just figured I would go ahead and put them to the test, let you know what I think about them, let you know if they are something that you should definitely be on the lookout for. So depending on what type of look I'm going for, sometimes I will go in with highlighter before bronzer, but today I think we're going to go in with bronzer first. And again, this is the Ciate London Bamboo Bronzer in the shade. It is in the shade Palm Island. Oh, interesting. It says, I didn't realize it had instructions on the back. It says, using a kabuki brush, dust this mattifying bronzer under cheekbones, collarbones, and across limbs to add natural looking warmth to the skin. It says that it is a mattifying powder bronzer. And I am not going to be using a kabuki brush. I am going to be using my MAC 135. This has quickly become one of my absolute favorite brushes to apply bronzer and contour. And this is the packaging. I really love the packaging. I think it is super cute. And this is the product itself. So it definitely does look like it's going to be a little bit on the lighter side, but there are two shades. Palm Island is the lighter of the two, and I believe the deeper shade is Desert Sands. I could be wrong. I'll link it below. And this did retail for $28. So all three of these products retail between $26 and I want to say $32. So I have swatched it before, but I have never actually applied it to the cheekbones. It is a little bit of a lighter bronzer, but I do think it does have a little bit of warmth to it, but I think because it is on the lighter side, it's not going to pull too orangey on the cheekbones. It does feel like a powder, but it blends. It feels really soft, and I feel like it's going to be something that's going to be super easy to blend. So I'm just going to take my MAC brush and just kind of pick up a little bit of the product. Oh, it's putting down more pigment than I was expecting. That's a really nice color. Blending nicely, and it's not depositing too much color at one time. So I always do really like blendable bronzers because I do think that they're easier to work with, especially if you are a beginner. I think that's nice. Just gonna kind of take it onto the top of the forehead, brush it back into the hairline a little bit. And then whatever is left over, bring it down and connect it to what I applied on the cheeks. I think it'll be really good for natural days. It's blending really nicely. If you are much darker than me, I would recommend just getting the deeper shade because this is a pretty light bronzer, but it is really pretty. And then what I'll do is I'll take my Sephora Pro Precision Powder number 59 brush, and then I'll just kind of blend that in a little bit. And then take a little bit more on this brush, not very much, and just kind of swoop the product up. I think that's nice. I think that looks really nice. I think it gives a really healthy, natural bronze look. It's not too dark. It's not too pigmented. It just looks, I think it looks really natural on the skin. So now we're going to go in with the highlighter, and the highlighter is the exact same packaging, and it is in the shade Moondust. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to take the highlighter in the shade Moondust. The highlighter is the most expensive of the three products. The highlighter does retail for $32, exact same packaging as the blush. And let's go ahead and give it a swatch. I feel like this highlighter is going to be the type of highlighter that gives you a very, very wet look. It does have a little bit of a pink undertone and a pink shift. Oh no, I dug my finger in it. Don't you hate when that happens? I do think it's going to give a really, really nice high shine look to the cheeks. So we're going to pick up a little bit of the highlighter. And this is my Anastasia A23 highlighting brush. Tap off the excess. And then I'm going to start. That's pretty. That's super intense, but pretty. This looks like a highlighter that would emphasize texture, so I'm definitely not going to bring it down to where I have larger pores. I'm just going to keep it in this area right in here and just kind of work it into the cheeks. That's super intense. I don't think I was ready for that. And then if you feel like your highlighter, of course, is always a little too intense, you can take your slightly damp beauty sponge and kind of melt it into the skin a little bit better. And that's another reason why sometimes I apply my highlighter first, because you can really see the distinction between bronzer and highlighter. And when you go in with blush, the blush just really nicely kind of melts the two together, and it kind of helps it look a little bit more natural, especially with these super intense highlighters like this. It's pretty though, but it is intense. And that's because I did not apply a lot to my cheekbones. So I'm going to apply a little less highlighter on this side. Okay, so yeah, I applied less on this side, and when you apply a little bit less, I feel like it looks nicer. So less is definitely more with this highlighter. So that's the amount that I picked up originally that I'm going to spend the next 20 minutes blending out probably. And that's just a nice wash of the highlighter. It definitely looks a little bit more natural. Just going to try to blend this side out a little bit. I picked up the powder brush that I use underneath my eyes with no extra powder. It's blending out pretty nicely. All right, so let's go ahead and give the blush a try. I picked the blush up in the shade as Summer Love. Exact same packaging. The blush is just significantly smaller. Illuminating blush, and it basically is kind of like a blush highlighter hybrid. It's a really pretty color, and that's it swatched on my hand. So we're gonna go ahead and pick a little bit of this blush up. And this is my Eco Tools Sheer Blush Brush. It's like a really pretty wash of like color. It's not overly pigmented, and it blends really easily. But if you have a texture to your skin, all of these products combined might be a bit much, but it is pretty. And now what I'm going to do is we're just going to kind of blend everything together. All right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and apply a lipstick really quickly, and then I will be right back. I quickly want to talk about all of the different products. I want to see if this bronzer is going to wear similar to some of my favorite bronzers. You know, I do love the color of it. I think it's really, really beautiful. I thought it was really blendable, really, really natural. If you are any deeper in skin tone than I am, you probably want to go ahead and jump up to the deeper of the two shades. Now, the great thing about it is they do apply such a soft amount of color at a time that they are going to blend really, really, really beautifully, and I feel like you will get a really nice, beautiful bronze look. Just a really effortless bronze. It does have a little bit of warmth to it, but not the kind of warmth that's going to make you look like Oompa Loompa. It's going to be an effortless bronze situation, so I really like it. I think it's really, really nice, and I'm eager to continue to try it. I noticed because it is so soft, if you guys are familiar with my channel, I do have a lot of discoloration on my forehead, and so a lot of times my bronzers can look extremely patchy. Even though it's not actually the bronzer, it is the discoloration on my forehead. I'm not noticing any of that with this particular bronzer because I think it's so light and just so natural. On the skin, I'm into the bronze. I'm really, really into the bronzer, so I can't wait to keep you guys updated on that one. The highlighter, if applied with an extremely light hand, I think that the highlighter can be extremely, extremely beautiful. Once I got it blended out, it actually looked really, really, it looks really, really nice on the cheekbones once it gets blended out. So I do feel like this highlighter, when applied lightly, is absolutely, absolutely beautiful. But you guys, you just have to go in with a super light hand and just kind of build it up as you go and make sure you really, really blend it into the skin. If not, it will be one of those highlighters that does look like you are actually wearing highlight. You will be able to see your highlighter and your bronzer and your blush, so they won't won't look seamless on the skin. This is definitely one of the highlighter that I would apply before bronzer or blush. That's just a little trick of mine that I like to do when I want things to look a little bit more natural and a little bit more skin-like. But once it was blended out, I do think it's really beautiful on the skin. I do think that it gives a really, really nice wet look. If you have issues with pores, this will accentuate your pores. So you definitely want to keep it limited to the tops of the cheekbones. Typically, if you have larger pores or texture on your skin, you typically don't want to bring your highlighter down into this area anyway, because it will accentuate that texture and those pores. So, but I do like it. I do think it's really, really pretty. And the blush is really pretty as well. I do also think that it will double really nicely as a blush topper, like I mentioned. And the reason why I think that this blush works, because I was a little bit skeptical, because it does have, like I mentioned, a bit of shimmer and sheen to the blush. But the reason why I think it works is because it's not overly pigmented. Blushes like that have a lot of sheen, when they're super overly pigmented, they can make you look a little disco ballish. One of my favorite blushes of all times is MAC's Margin, and that blush does have a sheen to it. But whenever my blushes have a little bit more of a sheen, I tend to focus them more towards the backs and not so much on the apples of the cheek. And that way it doesn't accentuate any pores, it doesn't accentuate any texture. I think that the color of this is really beautiful, and I do like all three products. It's just a matter of how they are going to wear throughout the day. I will check back in with y'all in just a little bit and let you kind of know how I'm feeling about the products. I do think that they are products, like I mentioned, I'm kind of looking at the skin right now. I do think that they are products that can be worn on more natural days, but I do think that they are products that can be built up to give you that full glam, especially the highlighter. And the bronzer, I don't know that I would use the bronzer as a contour either. I think that this is just a really, really nice bronzy shade. It's not ashy enough to be a contour. It's not cool enough to be a contour. So I'm into it so far. And yeah, I will check back in with you in a little bit. Alright guys, and I am back. I've had this makeup on now for probably, I want to say I sat down and started filming probably at about 10 o'clock, and it is about 7 o'clock now. So that's about 8 to 9 hours of wear that I've had this particular makeup on. I do think that the bronzer and the highlighter have held up pretty nicely, but I do think that the blush, I don't think that there's a whole lot of blush left blushing on, you know what I mean? So I want to say this really quickly, that in natural light, I do think that the blush, the highlighter looks a lot softer and a lot prettier in natural light. Sometimes in the more studio lights, I feel like things look a little bit harsher than what they actually are. And then when I step out into natural light, things just look a little bit nicer than what I expected. So in natural light, I do really, really like the highlighter. But I do prefer it on the side that is a little bit softer and not as much as applied. It's lasting really nicely on the cheeks. The bronzer is starting to patch off a little bit, but nothing too bad. The blush, I feel like it doesn't really have a whole lot of staying power. So like I mentioned before, I would recommend using this as a blush topper probably, which I know is kind of silly because it's an actual blush, but I think that it would look really, really pretty in that aspect. I do like all three products. I think that if you have dry skin, make you look really, really luminous and really, really pretty. If you have oily skin, I would say probably stay away from the blush. The highlighter would probably be okay if you work it into the skin like I mentioned. And the bronzer is matte, so definitely oily skin can wear that as well. If you do, I've said this like 75 million times in this video. I know it. I'm gonna say it one more time. Be careful if you have larger pores or more textured skin, because I definitely have a lot of breakouts in this area. And they are a little bit accentuated because of the luminosity that all of the products have on the skin. So that's one thing to be careful about. I would not go in with this blush and this highlighter together. If I would go in with this highlighter and like a matte blush, or I would not go in with the highlighter at all if I was going to wear this, or if I was going to wear this type of a more luminous blush, because it is a highlighter blush hybrid. So I probably didn't need to wear the blush over top of it, but I just wanted to test out all the products. I do like them. I think that the bronzer is really, really pretty and super, super natural, but it is, I mean, I guess 8 to 9 hours of wear is normally when all of my makeup goes to crap anyway. So I guess it did last a pretty decent amount of time. So on this wear test on the Ciate London face products, I give them all 2 thumbs up. I know the highlighter was touch and go for a minute, but the second I stepped out into natural light, I really, really did love it. So I give everything 2 thumbs up. And yeah, you guys, I will see you back here tomorrow for a Will I Buy It?